Man, look at that beauty backdrop you have.
Oh
That's
yeah, that's my
sick.
athlete wall, buddy.
Man, I gotta get something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. There's a bunch of them there.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's cool. Some of my athletes all over the place.
I see Emily Rolfe on there a few times, I think.
Yeah. You got a couple of them. Yeah,
That's sick, man. That looks dope. So that's your office.
my office, buddy.
Cool, man. That's good. Thanks for jumping on, by the way. This is sweet. I've been stoked all week.
Nice, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise, man. Excited.
Yeah. Cool, man. Um, yeah, I've been creeping your Instagram pretty hard lately. And
Oh
actually I
boy.
reached out to some of your athletes to see if they want to come on here too. Um,
Okay.
I've been into CrossFit for quite a while. I'm interested to see how long you've been interested in it or doing it, because I've been following some of your stuff and I'm like, okay, Brett's doing some of the open workouts. Like he's
Yeah.
in it, man. He's not just training people, he's actually doing it himself. So what got you into CrossFit?
It's actually a funny story. So way back in the day, when I started training again, let's see, this is probably like, I don't know, 70 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I was training in the gym, just like a commercial gym. And I saw this trainer and he was training some people and I was watching him. I was like, man, what's this guy training? Like, I'd never really noticed this kind of stuff. And like, I was just watching his gym. I was like, man, this is cool stuff. And one day I was like, man, forget it. I just walked him. I was like, hey, dude, like, what's up with you, man? Like, what are you doing? Like you taking new clients and stuff like that? And he's like, yeah, man. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm taking clients. And I was like, all right, dude, let's just do this.
Yeah,
So I just started signing up and did some PT with the guy. And oh, buddy, next thing I know, that was it, man. I fell in love with it.
sweet. Where was that
Yeah,
at? Where?
that was in it was in Ladner, British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, there's some killer athletes out here too, eh?
Oh, totally, man. Yeah, totally.
So who else you got? Emily Rolfe from BC. Like Pat Vellner's out here on the island.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of athletes that I work with in a broad span, man.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's sick. I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about them too. That's awesome. Um, I like to ask this question. What don't you like about CrossFit?
That's a good question. I've never had that question. Let's see. What don't I like about CrossFit? Man, I think that how we choose to view a lot of things is going to be very important. So I think sometimes when we look at something, if we find ourselves in a bad state, maybe we're going to look at it from a negative perspective. But I think in reality, the logic will prevail and say that maybe you're just being emotional and you don't like it personally because of something. Personally, I can't
Mm,
say that. I can't be like specific and be like, I don't like this. I mean, listen, obviously it's an incredible success. I think the benefits are outrageous.
yeah.
Maybe I think the one thing that bothers me, I would say, would be the fact of, I hear so many people in the public kind of steer away from CrossFit. They keep talking about these things about, injuries and this and that. And I think it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it has some sort of persona, and that's what they think based on, who knows, maybe bad programming or warm up or whatever it may be. I think that's the only thing that bothers me really about CrossFit.
Is that some people that don't do CrossFit see it in a negative light? That's what you don't like about it?
Yeah, I think like a lot of times, I mean, we know this, we train the sport. I mean, of course, proper warm up, cool down, conditioning, programming, it's all very important, right? I mean, every single movement is scalable. So there's no reason why you can't do it. And I think, sometimes maybe people find themselves in a spot where potential injuries come up. And I keep hearing about old CrossFit people get hurt all the time. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
hate hearing that side of it.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about it too is like, those types of people are looking at, the negatives of something like that. And meanwhile, and what we're going to talk about is all the other things, the implications that could happen in your life if you didn't do something like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, but that increased your chance of getting injured versus, well, maybe, I mean, that's even you could argue you're going to get injured sitting down on the couch.
Totally, man.
You're
Yeah,
going to
totally.
strain, you're going to strain your back folding the laundry and you're going to be like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, yeah, man. Taking
So
groceries out of the trunk,
yeah,
reaching around in the back seat.
yeah, dude, like that happens totally, whether you do CrossFit or not, or whether you do powerlifting or you were a mixed martial arts guy for a long time. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I trained Taekwondo pretty much since I was a little kid, since I was like 4 years old. Yeah, so I trained and, just like normal kids, you put in Taekwondo and they work their way through up the ranks and so on. But when I was a teenager, like I started to get pretty decent. And then let's see, my early 20s, that's when I was like, hey, maybe there's something I can do with this. Like it went from being pretty good to, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I had this big long goal. I mean, it was, like I said, it was a far-fetched dream at the beginning. I was like, man, I want to go to the Olympics one day.
Yeah.
And it was a few years later, I found myself on that path.
Yeah.
So yeah, martial arts has always been a huge part of my life, man.
Yeah. That's sweet. So this is something that I can't relate to because I've never been that good at a sport or a discipline. I was always just pretty good. Like the trophy I'm most proud of is and this is not, bashing myself at all. But the trophy I'm most proud of is a third place at an amateur strongman competition. I th-
Dude.
I threw all my other trophies out because I'm like, I don't care about these accolades. I actually care about this one because I knew how fucking hard I worked to get there. And I'm like, I'm so stoked about third place. I
Dude,
think
I
I
love
even
it.
I think I even won some free protein. Like it was
Sweet,
incredible,
man.
right? Like
Dude,
just bonus.
dude, forget about the prizes and the limelight. Sure, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm all about Matt Fraser's mentality. I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. About winning is winning.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, man. One of my most prized medals that I've ever had is bronze. And
Yeah.
again, sometimes there's a lot more behind the scenes that people don't understand or they don't see.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, I've won fights and then not even podiumed, and I've been super pumped with just how I performed. I mean,
Yeah.
again, perspective is a choice, man.
And you consider yourself what, a mindset coach, right?
That's right.
So how does this come into play for you? Like this is what you're talking about is mindset.
That's it, man. I mean, basically, so when I was competing at a high level, there wasn't a ton around the whole mind thing. Like there was a ton of physical training, there was a ton of nutrition, stretching and PT, all that kind of stuff, right? A lot of good stuff. But there wasn't a lot about like the actual mentality side of things. This is back in the day, right? The butterflies in your stomach the night before you can't sleep, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
after I retired, I was like, man, there's got to be more to this. And that's kind of when I dove into it, and I started, practicing with a few of my athletes that I knew from back in the day, just for fun. Let's just try some of the stuff, and then did some schooling, and then more, and then all of a sudden, I kind of found myself in this channel of a ton of experience. And then I started getting a ton of schooling, a ton of knowledge, and I was like, man, let's just do this. Like, forget it. Who cares? And yeah, man, here I am now. And like I said, it's been an absolute dream, buddy.
That's sick.
Yeah,
So that's something I wanted to touch on too, because you and I both know a lot of people that don't hire out or don't have the resources to have some type of a coach.
sure.
I always think I just think of how big of a shift it is when you look at, you look behind you at the wall, and those people might have like 5 different coaches,
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
mindset, nutrition. They might have a car, they might have a massage, they might have a PT, they might have an endurance coach, swim coach, like the list goes on. We think about how disciplined a person is and how humble someone like that is at that level to hire this many people to help get them better. And we have people that won't pay, $30 for a program from someone. It's just like, when I see something like that, I certainly don't put those people down. It's not about that, but I just see such a big difference in how people can approach their wellness.
Yeah,
It's like
I think
crazy.
I agree. I think a lot of it is the awareness and their ROI, like what they actually believe they're going to get in return. And I think a lot of it, and maybe it's society today where a lot of people feel that, oh, it's just another thing, or it's just another fad, or it's just one of those or one of these or whatever, and they don't really give themselves the opportunity to dive more into it. Like when people hear about what I do, it's like, well, high performance mindset coaching, like what? So you just work with professional athletes? Like, no, man, I work with people in business, everyday people like you and I. The mindset is the mind, right? Like this is it's a big thing. Everything starts and ends with your mind, and how we choose to view things drastically changes it. I mean, you can think about a time where I don't know, maybe we think something that's good and we feel good. We think something bad, we feel bad. Like all these things add up, right? But I think it's our job to articulate it properly so people have a better understanding of what they're going to receive,
Right.
right? I think yeah, whether it's $30 a month to sign up for some program, the value has to be there, and I think that's definitely the most important piece.
Right. Can you, I want to talk about how you and I met. Dude, that event was crazy. Like it was absolutely unreal.
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever been to an event like that. So that was an event put on from a mutual friend of ours. It's called One Last Talk.
Yeah.
And man, the one last talk, I don't like, well, it's not just like, okay, if you're on your deathbed, what's the last few words you're going to say, right? It's not like that at all. The one last talk, his whole preface is about, telling the raw truth, like telling your story in an unapologetic, authentic way with no sense of judgment in a safe environment. Well, yeah, just an incredible experience. I mean, I've talked about my story many times about getting sick and so on, but there's a number of things that lead us to that place. Like, those voices that we hear in our head, or the things that we talk and say to ourselves when nobody's around. Everybody's got skeletons in the closet, man. So, to have an opportunity to speak openly in a non-judgmental environment is very freeing in a way. Yeah, it was an incredible event, and obviously I met you there, and it was a pleasure, man.
That's sick. Would you do something like that again?
Oh yeah, I think the benefits are tremendous. They really are. Like, man, yeah, even looking back at it now, I was just like, wow, what a moment, like what an experience.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, for those of you guys listening that don't know Brett, your story's pretty intense, right? Like it doesn't get much more raw than that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, it's everybody's got a story, right?
100%. Yeah.
Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got something. I mean, we've been through a bunch of stuff in life. That's human nature. It's life.
Yeah.
Right. Mine was specific because I was trying to achieve something I was told I couldn't, and then I found a way to overcome and do better than I ever expected I could.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like I said, man, and we do this stuff every single day. I mean, I hear stories about, you know, mothers with their children doing incredible things, or the teachers never wanting to leave until every student understands the lesson. Like, I mean, there's so many great heroes out there, man.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think just to shed some light on, like, people listening that, or maybe people that aren't listening, people that eventually will hear this. I'm looking at your wall behind you, and a lot of incredible athletes, but there's so many things that people do day to day that are incredible that they maybe don't see as incredible. And
Sure.
you already named it with like the parenting. I'm a fairly new parent myself.
Great, man.
And
Congrats.
thanks, man. Yeah, he's almost 2 now, but it still seems like it's,
Yeah.
he's young. We're still in it. And I think of all the stuff around parenting and even being in a relationship. I can think back to my life. I'm 32, and I'm like, anything in those 2 sectors, having kids or relationship, those are way harder than anything I've ever done physically. Mind you, I'm also not a top performing athlete, but anyone that's into fitness knows what it's like to try hard.
Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, it doesn't matter the realm, man. Like, whether
Yeah.
you try hard in the gym or you try hard with parenting, like it doesn't. The application is irrelevant. It's the actual effort that you're putting in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good on you, man. I can't even imagine, man. I have a hard time taking care of myself, let alone kids.
Yes. So do I, but yeah.
Finding a way, man.
That's the thing. Like, what are you going to do? Give up? Like, I mean, I guess some people may, and that's unfortunate, but like for the vast majority, we're just making it happen. Right. And just keep trying.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting that you say, and I talk about this all the time, quite often with my athletes. Like, so for example, you now have a son, you have a child, and you're
Yeah.
2 years old. I mean, that's your everything, man. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what I would say, you would find a way to do it because that's your child, right? That's like the ultimate amount of leverage, right? I had an athlete once I was working with, and they're doing a workout, and it was Friendly Fran. And they're on the
Yeah.
last round, and they had 3 chest to bar pull-ups to finish. They jumped up, hit 1, hit 2, dropped off the bar. 1, 2, 3, jumped up, finished the last set or last rep. Jumps off the bar, sees the time, one of the best times in the world. Okay, one of the best times in the world. It's an incredible achievement, and the athletes on the floor dying after Friendly Fran, and come over, a little fist bump, and let things settle. And I hear he's like, "That's the absolute best. That was my everything, man." And I said, like, really, man? Like, that was 100%? And he's like, absolutely. Like, that's my 100%. It's the best. That's the best score I've ever gotten. That's the best I could ever do. Like, that is it. And I had this thought in my mind, and I said, man, what if I was to put like a gun to your wife's head on that last set of 3 and say, hey, you can't let go on that last rep. Like, you need to go through and finish that entire set. And he's like, well, obviously I'd figure it out. I'd do it. I said, well, you just finished telling me like that was the best you could have done, but you broke the last set of 3. Now you're telling me otherwise. And again, that's like that ultimate level of leverage, right? So
100%.
with your son, man, I mean, dude, this is the ultimate leverage in a great way. I mean, you're going to do whatever it takes to be an incredible parent. Like you've got leverage there, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what people in everyday life, so maybe they can't think about, having a son or a gun to their wife's head, but there's still a ton amount of leverage that we can use to push us to places that we've never been. A lot of people just don't attach something to it. Like, what's going to happen if I don't do this? So what's going to happen if I let go? Okay, it cost me a second. Yeah. There's so much more to it than that, right?
Right. And you, with a mindset coach, and are you mainly working with CrossFit athletes, by the way, like of your athletes?
So the majority of my athletes are in CrossFit. But yeah, I've got athletes in a wide span of any sporting event you can think of.
So I think people that are listening to this, probably a good chunk follow CrossFit, but I want to break this down. So Friendly Fran, by the way, Fran is usually standard Fran workout from CrossFit. If you don't know, 21, 15, 9, 95-pound thruster, or 65-pound thruster for women, or 75.
I think it's 65.
And then pull-ups, which, if you're new to CrossFit, you're seeing some pretty funky pull-ups. What's the Friendly Fran workout? Is it 3 rounds?
3 rounds. Yeah, it's all 21. Yeah,
brutal.
Chest to bar and heavy bar. Yeah, it's a terrible workout. But again, there's a number of workouts, and we've all been there for those who train CrossFit. Whether it's we transition and we walk up to the bar, we're supposed to pick up the bar right away, and we take that extra breath, or oh man, I don't know, maybe we're going on the bar and we're in our mind, we're like, okay, we got this, and all of a sudden we just find ourselves standing on the ground, like we let go of the bar on our toes to bar, or we dump the bar with a couple more reps to go. We've been there, right?
Thousands of times.
Man, we've all been there, man. It's it's crazy because like our body's screaming at us. There's a mix of emotions. It's like, dude, just stop. Like, please, it's so easy to stop. Like, it's so much easier to stop than it is to keep going, right? And that's why I always say like that whole leverage piece is so important. I mean, there's a number of things, but that's definitely one of them.
So I'd like to peel the curtain back a little bit, if that's cool.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So that sounds a bit like a tactic, right?
Yeah, sure.
And that's like post competition or post WOD, or quick kind of reflection after. Sure. Maybe what's another effective timing for your coaching?
Timing in the sense of
like when you may introduce something, because clearly you're like, dude, you got a big fucking role in this.
Oh yeah, man. Right? I mean, listen, yeah, I mean, every piece of the puzzle is very important, right? So
for sure.
It's very subjective based, depends on the athlete, depends on what we're working on. If this is an ongoing program, or if they're working just to be prepared for a competition, or they got a big interview or a big speech or whatever it may be. So it's very subjective to the individual, but there's a number of tools and tactics, man. I mean, like I said, leverage is being one of them, the whole perspective thing, self-awareness, like all these things are so crucial. I think that the biggest thing that I can say to you is that I have found that people lack is in the broad span of things, the vast majority of the people do not realize the ramifications of their own conscious thoughts. All right. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we're thinking things and our emotions are derived directly from our thoughts and how we choose to view the world in front of us. So what we think is going to drastically change our state, how we feel. So that's what I said to you. If we think certain things, maybe we feel good. If we think bad things, maybe we feel bad. The problem people run into is that when we make decisions, usually based on how we feel. So we find ourselves in a shit state. A lot of times we're going to find ourselves making poor decisions. Okay. And vice versa. If we find ourselves in a better state, maybe we can make better decisions. This is a direct application into like high performance when it comes to training as well.
So what I'm hearing you say, and like jump on this, you're saying reacting or responding to something emotionally allows us to be vulnerable, number one, which is not necessarily good or bad. It creates some vulnerability, but in a high level situation that could be detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely. It could also be the biggest thing you possess. Like, think about it like this. Think about, you're finishing up a workout on Friendly Fran and you're dying and you should hang on to the last set and you just let go because it's very easy to let go because you're emotional. The body's screaming at you, please stop, right? You're all messed up. But look on the flip side, when you hear these stories about these mothers like lifting up their cars to save their children, you follow? Like,
Yeah.
there's massive extremes here. So people need to understand that the vast majority of us can control our own emotions as opposed to being a victim of our own created emotions. So if we have better control of what we're consciously thinking and what we're consciously doing, then we can really have better control of our emotional state. And that's so crucial, like so crucial.
So do you find that when you're working with someone that's, maybe new, because obviously the longer you work with someone, the more you get these kind of like, fine tunings of what's going to work with that person. It happens with me with personal training too. It might start off a little bit more broad, but once you get to know that person, you kind of know what drives them or what you might need to say or what you might not need to say in order for them to make the change. Do you find that you talked about this leverage piece. So do you find when you're, I guess, take me through like how you might do, it sounds to me like you probably need to do some type of like consult with a new client. Like I'm trying to figure out, is this leverage piece, is that something you try to understand through questioning so that you have this piece as like a, in a CrossFit athlete, when at that time where you might give up, I'm going to remind you of that
Sure,
thing.
of course, man. Absolutely. I mean, there's a number of things. Like leverage is absolutely one of them. I mean, you think about, Rich Froning or Matt Fraser getting second place twice, or Catherine Davis-Daughter falling off the rope and Ben Bergeron telling her, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you, right? I mean,
right.
That is like an extreme amount of leverage. I mean, if you think about it, that's why, I mean, like I said, Matt Fraser got second twice. And
yeah.
I remember him saying clearly, like, hey, look, this is like every day I'm training, I'm going to look back in that. And remember standing on the podium saying, man, I lost first. Right.
Yeah,
so
that's what he hates.
That's it.
That's second place. Yeah.
But think about how many people have been pushed to tragedy or failure and then had that be the best thing that's ever happened to them. Right. I mean, it's, again, there's leverage all over the place. The thing is that the mind doesn't know the difference between reality, what's actually happened, and what you construct, like what you actually tell it. I never tell anybody to lie to themselves, ever, never. But you can choose to apply leverage to certain things. And the majority of the people don't make that conscious choice.
Right. So that's super interesting, because what I was saying, and especially when I heard your one last talk and what you said, everyone has a story, everyone has adversity, and it can mean it can be something really small or it can be something huge. It's all, perspective. But for those folks that, may hear this conversation and may not be able to relate, like maybe they don't feel like they've gone through some big adversity. How does someone like that learn to turn it on when they need to, when they can't think of that like mega adversity, or they don't feel like they're pushed against the ropes? Like what's kind of maybe like a mental trick they can do so they're not lying to themselves?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big thing is to identify what it is they're trying to achieve, right? So for example, let's say you got second place and you really want to win. You can use that as leverage, right? Let's say you've never competed before and you really want to win. All right. And maybe you're trying to work towards something. There's so many opportunities for you to apply leverage to whatever it is that you want. Again, it's about making a conscious decision and a choice, right? So really identifying what it is that you actually want to achieve is extremely important. Think about how many people sign up for the gym in January and then stop training 2 weeks later. I mean, we've joked about this. I mean, this is a common thing, right? So everybody sends these New Year resolutions, and a lot of people do them, which is phenomenal, and a lot of people don't, which is unfortunate. I think the majority of people stop after 2 weeks or a month at the gym because maybe they don't see the results. All right. They step on the scale, it's still the same, or whatever it may be. But both you and I know that there's a lot of changes that are happening, right? People just don't see them. So people lose sight when something is not tangible, when it's not measurable. I mean, maybe the scale is the same, but they've increased 10 pounds on their deadlift, or they took 30 seconds off their Karen, or whatever it may be. Well, I probably know I'm doing Karen, but maybe they took 30 seconds off of something, right?
Is that 150 wall balls?
Yeah, that's right. So maybe there is something there that they're not looking at, right? So I would say for people that want to achieve something, making it measurable is extremely crucial. All right. And I mean like tangible. So like every single day, they should be able to measure something, nothing vague. Measurable meaning, I don't know, maybe it's a businessman and he says, okay, like I want a realtor. Let's say I want to get more business. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk to a bunch of people today. Great. So he goes out there, has a couple conversations. Oh man, I feel very successful today. I did a bunch of stuff today. Cool. What'd you do? Well, I talked to a couple people. Okay, great. End of story. What the
Yeah.
hell is that going to get you?
Yeah.
Like, I need to make it measurable. Like, I want you to legitimately have 50 conversations. Every single time you have one, you make a check mark on your notebook. Okay. Or you pick up the phone and you are calling 25 people right now in a row. Make it measurable. So it's tangible. The difference here is that there's somebody who thinks they've done something, like me, like somebody going to the gym and dicking around for 2 hours, barely doing anything, versus somebody going to the gym and actually doing something.
Right.
So the guy who dicked around, went to the gym, comes home, he's like, oh, I went to the gym today. I feel great. Did my thing. I didn't do shit really, but I feel fantastic. You get the realtor who's like, oh, I talked to a bunch of people. I feel great. Let's sit down on the couch and park our ass and watch TV. Like,
Yeah.
but they didn't do shit. And a lot of the times we believe we did something, but we never actually did it to our potential, or did it really so it's going to have a great positive reinforcement and ramification. So if you made it measurable, here's how many cold calls or how many X amount of doors you knocked on, whatever it may be. Here's it measurable at the gym. Here's what I'm going to set up. Here's what I'm actually going to do. By the time you're done, now that's a serious sense of accomplishment. You keep doing that, compounded over time is going to get you results. People lose sight of something when it's not measurable.
Right.
That's a very, very important thing.
So it seems like in a time like, a time like that realtor or that person going to the gym, having a coach is so key, right? Because you essentially, well, I mean, this is the main reason people hire coaches. I'm not sure if it's the same reason for mindset coaches, but it's the accountability, right? So I'm sure it crosses that path too. I want you to make me be, don't let me drop off the bar, right? Like, don't let me.
That's
and
it.
It's so, in my world, it's not quite as extreme because I don't have high level athletes. It's more general pop, but it's, different examples, but same type of thing. Don't let me eat that piece of fucking cake, right?
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Well, we'll work on that. But accountability is tiring, especially when you're doing it on your own. Like, having a coach is awesome. And I think it's great with how the world is operating now, or at least how I'm seeing the world operating now, is that there's a lot more availability of online coaching and, cheaper options and more options and whatever. But accountability is tiring, especially when you're doing it over, like, you're trying to be accountable to your parenting style, whether you can relate to this or not, people listening, you're trying to be accountable to living a fitter lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle. You're trying to be accountable in business and growing a business. So growth, like being accountable to growth and change, is really tiring.
Yeah, man, I can absolutely see that for sure.
Right.
Especially for the everyday person. I mean, it's very easy for us to put our feet up and sit down for a bit, right? It's very easy for us to say, oh man, I did so much work today. Like, I'm good. I could take the rest of the day. And I'm not discounting anybody that's actually putting in the work. Like, let me be very clear here. All
Yeah.
I'm saying is that there's a good possibility that a lot of us think we've done a lot when there's a lot more we could do.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's very important to identify what it is that you want to achieve. And if that's what you want to achieve, then man, good on you. Like, go for it. If that's what you want, right? It's very important that people really do what they want to do, in a sense that that's great. But if you're going to sit there and complain about not having something else, don't you dare complain to me, because
Mm-hmm.
I ain't going to give you any sympathy whatsoever.
Right.
You're going to get what you put in, right? And that's what I said. If that's what you want, all the power to you.
I've been following some different cats on social media lately, like we all have. And what I feel like there's a disconnect is between people that are extremely successful, and I'm going to call them general pop for the sake of it. So extreme people in this nature are people that become obsessed over their whatever their goal or their modality, their discipline. And I don't know that this general pop sees what it actually would take in order to get there. Here's an example too. I went through a couple phases where, through it, like the last, I don't know, 15 years, where I would be writing down my goals, fairly obsessively, we'll call it. I'm going to call it a healthy obsession. I'd write down all my goals every morning on a piece of paper. It would generally fill up a full page. And then I would write all those goals down again at night, not word for word. I would just be like, what are my goals? And I'd write them all down. And sometimes over the course of weeks, some of those goals would drop off. So I kind of wonder if there was and I'm a really goal driven person. But I kind of wonder if it was like, how do you decipher goals that are truly meaningful to you versus just trying to get more done?
That's good. So were you saying you were writing your goals down in the morning and you'd write them down again in the evening?
Yeah.
So, I mean, something like this is really cool. I think what happens when you look at goals and again, making it very measurable and specific, a lot of people don't do that. So maybe you say, okay, I don't know, Brett, I want to clean 3 plates. Okay.
Right.
So that's my goal. I want to clean.
We're not talking about a restaurant either. We're talking gym.
Correct. Yeah. So you want to clean 3 plates. That's your goal at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great goal. So what are you going to do to make up that goal? To me, that goal is just like a singular thing. So it needs to be specific. That's the area of focus, right? So you need to have that goal broken down into sections. So imagine area of focus. I want to clean 3 plates. And then you've got these little lines coming off of it written on paper. Okay, cool. What are the tactics that are going to make up this goal? Okay. Well, clearly I need to put in the training. All right. So maybe I need a new Olympic lifting coach. Maybe I need to train more, clean more, do more extension, whatever. Right. So you got the area of focus, you've got the tactics, and then you need the behaviors. So you need lines underneath those things. So if I need to go get a coach, cool. Today I'm going to outsource to try to do some research to finding a new coach. Okay. I'm going to start building a new program. Okay. This is what it's going to look like. So when the behaviors are tangible things that you're actually going to do, they start to make up the tactics, which then make up the area of focus. So when people set goals and you're a very goal-driven person, I mean, it's great. I would always advise to make it very specific. So now let's say we have general pop people who say, I want to do this. And they start doing it. And maybe they kind of say, oh, maybe it's not attainable or it's too far away, or I don't know how much work it's going to take or whatever. I feel like a lot of times it's because it's not specific enough. What's going to happen is as they start doing these behaviors, when they break down their goals, they're really going to figure out sooner or later whether they love this or they hate it.
Yeah, good point.
The people that love it are the people that are going to achieve it. The people that hate it, maybe they're going to come up with an excuse, or maybe they don't want to do it, or maybe they don't want the goal as much as they thought they did because they don't want to put in the work to get there, which is fine. All I'm going to say to you is come up with a new damn goal, a new area of focus, new tactics and new behaviors, and start. Like you look at Gary Vee and all these guys, they just say start, like just go, just do it, like do something, right? Yeah. Eventually you're going to find the thing that you hit and you're going to be like, this is it, man. This is it. But I feel like they don't give it a chance because they don't do the behaviors that'll make up the tactics and make up the area of focus.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying, action beats inaction every time, which I think any successful person would essentially say that, like, just start. You're going to fuck up. You're going to fail. That's great. Sure. But you have to start. Just do something. And not just writing down your goals, but working towards these goals, trying to define them, then starting, as we're saying, and then it's okay if you don't keep pursuing all of those goals. But if you realize that, you're not truly passionate about it, or you don't love it, as you say, find a different goal and then shift that focus.
That's it. And mistakes and nothing's gonna be perfect. Let me give you a personal example. Years ago, when I decided that I wanted to coach pro athletes, I was traveling the world. I did a ton of traveling and just taking some time for me, right? Doing my thing. And my social media handle was just Van City Brett. That was me from Vancouver, Van City Brett. That's me, right?
It's great.
Yeah, thanks. So that's my thing. I'm just doing my thing, right? Then I say, hey, I'm going to coach pro athletes. This is what I'm going to do. So I start thinking about these things. I'm like, man, I'm going to design like a cool business name. I'm going to design this. I'm going to design that. And man, I did like nothing in a month. Like in terms of actual trying to build a business, I was trying to build logos and merchandise and like just ridiculous things, right?
Yeah.
And I look back and I love it. I appreciate it now because it makes me laugh, right? So then all of a sudden, I find myself in an opportunity, and I'm like, oh man, I actually got a couple of clients, and now things are just starting to just boom, right? So the guys are like, hey, so you got your business? Like, what's your business name? And I'm like, Van City Brett. That's my name, man. Yeah. And the guy's like, okay, cool. I mean, like, it has nothing to do with CrossFit, has nothing to do with coaching. Yeah. And I was like, fuck it, man. Like, stop giving a shit about the name and about business cards and your branding. Yeah. Who cares, man? It's not, to me, I realized that, and I laugh now, But man, what a waste of time. And I was so stuck on something that really at the time for me wasn't relevant. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man. And now, like I said, I mean, things have evolved a ton, man. But yeah, man, whatever, man. Just do it. Right?
Yeah, and not being afraid of judgment. Here's something I'm learning from a marketing course right now. It's that quantity over quality, which is not something I would have thought about, right? Generally,
Okay.
it's like, what? I didn't even
Yeah,
know about
no,
that. And it's essentially like when we're using social media, it's like people aren't going to see you anyway.
for
So
sure.
don't fucking worry about it if your hair is brutal or like or you
Yeah.
misspell something or you don't like they're not even going to see you. So it makes such a small impact on like if you make a mistake
Yeah.
or if you fuck something up, like you said, Van City Brett.
I know.
It's like
Whatever, man.
I was in the same like I'm just kind of keeping the snowball rolling with my business, but I was trying to when I reestablished that I was going to keep personal training because my thing is I was a trainer for about 10 years, all one-on-one
Yeah.
in gyms back in Peterborough, Ontario. And then COVID hit. I owned a gym. My partner and I had thought about moving out to Victoria, where I am now. And luckily enough, COVID kind of caught the gym at a time where I didn't feel like I wanted to be involved in the gym. And we were thinking about moving. So I moved here and I got comfortable for a month. And that comfort was enough for me to be really uncomfortable because I like striving towards something. So I just started an email and I was like, shit, does this email mean it's going to be my brand? So I just like, I don't fucking know. Josh trains me. I don't
Yeah.
know. That sounds like that could be something.
Yeah.
And then I just went with it. Right. And I mean, even from that, I'm like stumbling across all this stupid shit I'm doing with like podcasts. I had the dumbest name for this podcast originally. It was called Popsicle Podcast. I was like trying to be funny with something. And my buddy called me out on it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I'm just fucking around. And like one person noticed.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they thought it was funny. And it's like, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, man. I mean, sure, in a perfect world, would it be cool? Yeah, why not? In
Yeah.
reality, who gives a shit,
Yeah.
man?
Seriously.
They
Right.
don't care. Like
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
care. As much as we think they care, like they don't, man. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
So would you say it's fair to say the stuff that we feel like people are going to care about, sometimes they don't at all. And then the
Yeah.
things that we feel like people will care about, they also super do. And I want to actually, do you feel comfortable saying a little bit about your story, about
Yeah,
your one
absolutely,
last
man.
talk?
Yeah, yeah.
Give it like, dude, that was, man, I felt super connected. Clearly you were a great speaker.
Thanks, man.
But also your story was great. And because it was yours, right?
Yeah, man.
You
Yeah,
weren't
I
reading a
think
book off someone.
yeah, I mean, being authentic is a big piece, right? And like I said,
Yeah.
that opportunity to like I've talked about my story many times, but to tell it in just an open, facet, non-judgmental manner, yeah, it's freeing, man. It really is, and it's kind of
Freeing.
really reinforces everything that I believed in and everything that's gotten me to where I am today, right? Yeah, man. So, I mean, so to some high level insight, just really quick. So for those who don't know, so I trained martial arts, like I said, my whole life.
Yeah.
In early 2000s, I had an opportunity to go train overseas for a while. So I picked up and I left. And the goal was to, hopefully one day make it to the Olympics in Beijing in 2008. So in 2006, I'm there. I get sick, like really sick. Like I have a stomach disease. And that brings me back home. A couple of years goes by. Doctors are trying to diagnose this. They couldn't figure it out for the longest time. In that time, I mean, I was very self-conscious about a lot of things. I was very insecure about a lot of things. Now, of course, martial arts, I was using it really to kind of mask these insecurities. So, like I said, there was times where I'd rather be fighting and feel like physical pain as opposed to the emotional pain that I was dealing with. And doctors finally diagnosed me with this disease called gastroparesis. There's no cure for this for gastroparesis. It's basically a delayed emptying of the stomach. Man, they basically tell me the Olympics is over. So I had 3 different specialists tell me that, hey, you got to let go of this martial arts stuff. It's never going to happen. And I'm a mess. So I mean, I fought in welterweight. So then I go all the way down to 124 pounds. So I'm like a rake, buddy. And man, listen, when you're in a bad state, and this is what I said to you earlier, is like when you're in a bad state, you make poor decisions. And sometimes the things you think become catastrophic, like a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a day where I was legitimately thinking, I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. Like depression is an understatement, man. And I get up to a crosswalk and I have some bad thoughts in my head. Man, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be here. And there's a boy in front of me who's in a wheelchair as I push the crosswalk button. And of course, like I said, these thoughts are just like consuming me. And this boy is standing between me and the road. And I push the button and I look at him and he's like 15 and he looks back at me and he smiles at me. And this boy has no legs. And you know, like I've told this story countless times, and like that was one of those pivotal moments that changed my life. But thinking about it now, like it still just reinforces everything. Like, my gosh, man, like I'm standing and he's in a wheelchair with no legs and he's smiling, and I don't want to be here anymore. Like that's messed up, right? Like that's messed up. That was the day that I had realized like there was something greater. And like I said, I knew I was in a bad place, but I realized like this had to be on me. Like if he can smile, so can I. That's what I kept saying to myself over and over and over. If he can smile, so can I. That's like that leverage piece. We
Yeah.
fast forward a bit, man, and I remember there was days I was like, "This is gonna be tough. We're gonna figure it out." And I started like just like juicing fruit and vegetables. Like gastroparesis is really tough because basically the colon in the bottom of your stomach doesn't open. So when I eat food, it would sit in my stomach and it would never go into my digestive tract because the colon was shut. What would happen is after like 4 or 5 days of eating, the food would decompose, rot, and then I'd have like massive bacterial infections, and it's like getting food poisoning every few days. So that's the symptoms. So I was trying to do different things, and then I started just going back to myself. And I always say, like, if he can smile, so can I. You know, and I tried to like meditate for a little bit before I couldn't do it. I was like, okay, if he can smile, so can I. And I just kept going. Like I said, started juicing fruit and vegetables. I just started watching some different material online. I started doing some more research and reading, but I found myself in a different state. Like I was no longer in that like hardcore negative state. Things weren't great. Don't get me wrong. They weren't great, but I was finding myself doing things that made me feel a little bit more human again. If he can smile, so can I. And long story short, man, I fast forward to a few years later where I was able to compete martial arts again. And in 2012, I got bronze at nationals. And that's the most cherished medal I have, man. I mean, it's bronze at nationals, no big deal, but it's to me,
Yeah.
buddy, I was 30 at the time, and nobody competes at that age in for that. Cause like, I was just like, man, to me, it was a huge thing. So, yeah, that's again, that, like I said, looking back at it, it's just like, man, yeah. Definitely an incredible moment, buddy. Gives me goosebumps when I think about it right now.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
I love hearing stories like this. And you know, I heard your story once before.
Yeah,
I love hearing stories about people making huge changes. And I love the feeling of people getting motivated from their own shit.
yeah, dude. Like,
Is that not so powerful?
totally, man. Yeah,
Like,
totally. Like I said, it gives me goosebumps, man. And like I said, I've talked about this many times, but you know, being vulnerable and talking about the things that, like, that's why I realized I was like, hey, it's okay. Like, I'm human. If I was so concerned about people judging me, like, well, what if they think like, oh man, like I don't know, maybe I had a horrible upbringing, or they think my parents are bad, or they think about this guy's just messing the head. Like,
yeah,
man, no, like, dude, like, fuck it, man. I don't care anymore, anyways. If they want to think that, fuck it. It's who am I to control what people think? Like, but why let it consume me?
right.
Like it was just like I was doing it to myself, man. That's why I say to you earlier in the conversation, I was like, you know, a lot of people struggle with their own self-created emotions, like self-created, like what we think creates these emotions.
Right.
And that's that fucking massive snowball. So the big thing is that's why I'm such a great coach, is because I'm the biggest emotional person you can ever meet, man. Like, I mean, I'm human, right? But I
Yeah.
admit it. So I was thinking terrible things, which was putting me in a horrible state. Man, there's no difference between the other direction, thinking great positive things and putting yourself into a better state. You see, it's
Yeah.
a choice, man. And
Yeah.
we have that choice. I don't care about your surroundings. I don't care about your upbringings. I don't care if you don't have this or that. It has nothing to do with it. You control your
Yeah.
mind. That is it. And that's the decision maker right there.
Yeah. What I like about your example and how you're explaining is that it's literally the Viktor Frankl example, right?
Yeah, man.
Um, dude, have you ever read the book The Wedge?
No. And I'm a big good book guy too, man. I've never read it.
Well, there's probably a lot of books you haven't read, Brett. There's this book. I called this guy out because that Viktor Frankl book is enormous, right? Like Man's Search for Meaning.
Yep.
There was a book that came out that I read. It was recommended by a buddy of mine. He was a high performing athlete. We have similar taste in books. And I read this book, and the whole time I was reading, I'm like, man, this sounds a lot like Viktor Frankl's Search for Meaning. Like in between stress and response is choice, right?
Yeah.
And he calls this term the wedge. And I was like, I actually called him out. I'm like, how are you a journalist and you haven't heard of this book, man? Your book is almost identical to this like Holocaust survivor psychiatrist perspective. It was just really interesting. But what I'm hearing is that you chose to clearly you're making a choice. Yeah, if he can smile, so can I. But what I like about your story is you're still using that, or at least you were, right? You've grown beyond that you need to think of that in order to make a choice now. But you had that frame of reference where you're like, I have the choice. I have control.
That's it.
So I'm going to control, and I'm sure that comes up in all sorts of different ways, but I'm going to choose to control so that I have a better outcome of what my response is going to be like. Right.
Totally, man.
This kind of story and a lot of stories that we hear are laced with like mental health. And I'm not sure if that term is really that good to use, but like suicide and mental health, clearly it's a huge issue. Mm-hmm. Like, do you think talking about it and sharing stories, do you think that's enough?
You mean like the general public talk about it and sharing stories, or you think like as for an individual who is struggling with this?
Let's start with, I think that's another good question. Let's start with the first part. So, yeah.
I think that I'm going to get myself into some trouble here. I believe that talking about it and shining light on it is very important. Very, very important. All right. I think especially like some of the events that we just did, like when I met you, like that is a very, very good and important event. Like I really have a lot of respect for that. Shining light on, mental health and awareness is very, very important. My concern is that sometimes it could be very easy for us to scapegoat certain things and say, oh, I'm struggling with this, when maybe in reality, maybe that isn't fully the case. Okay. And again, I preface this with, listen, I'm not a doctor. This is just my opinion. Like, I believe that I have found through certain types of coaching that I have done, that I have found to believe, and I believe that I found that sometimes it's very easy for us to scapegoat certain things and put us in this type of a bubble. Let me give you my personal example. Yes, I had an illness. I have a disease called gastroparesis, but I know 100% I made it with my mind 100 times worse than it needed to be, without a doubt. Okay, that's my personal, I know this for a fact. That's my own personal story. Okay, my only concern is with all this additional shining light on mental health and awareness, that I hope that people don't find a scapegoat it and make it more apparent and make things worse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Sounds a lot like hopefully you can find ownership over your own life.
Yeah, man. Like for sure. Like, I don't know, you think about how many times it's like, I'm sick today. Like let's say I catch a cold and it's like, oh, I'm sick. I can't do that. I can't do this, but really you can, right? And maybe you giving it is making you feel like shit, right? Again, this is coming from a mental coach. So let me give you a great CrossFit example. So let's say, I don't know, let's say you're at a competition and they announce a workout and it's burpees and heavy deadlifts.
Right.
Okay? And maybe you're not great at heavy deadlifts. So right away, they announce this workout, I don't know, 21, 15, 9, 15, 21, heavy deads and burpees over the bar. And they announce a workout and you're terrible at heavy deads. And all of a sudden you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Shoulders drop, head down, like I'm screwed, right? So all of a sudden your demeanor changes, that you get that punch in the face, like, man, it's the last day of the competition. I need this event. Oh, and now it's like complete damage control. And you look over at the competitor next to you and they're like, oh, let's go. Right?
Yeah.
So now you already feel like shit because that's a terrible workout for you in your mind. And now all of a sudden you're looking at your competition and they're pumped. Now it's like a double whammy. Now it's like, I'm fucked. Excuse my language, right?
Yeah, go for it. I love swearing on this.
Yeah. So again, now all of a sudden we're looking at something, we're making a choice, say, hold on, this is no good for me. Now I'm choosing to look at him and say, oh, he must love this workout. Now it's like a double whammy. So with mental health, I just preface it with that. There's a lot of light being shined on it, which I absolutely love and respect. I just hope it doesn't get scapegoated.
Yeah.
And to give you something really quick to finish that deadlift story, the CrossFit story.
Yeah.
What people need to understand is how we view things, again, drastically changes our state. So maybe you're not the greatest at heavy deadlifts, but what can you do, right? So maybe as an athlete, I need to choose, okay, listen, I got to do the work. Like I can't change this workout. I have to do it. So I got to do it regardless. So what can I do? Well, listen, I know that my engine's huge and I'm a machine at burpee over the bar. Great. Okay. Do you think there's a possibility that you'll make up time doing burpees over the bars? Like, do you think there's a possibility? Yeah, probably. Do you think some of these other guys are going to go ham on the deadlifts, maybe cook themselves, which would make it slower on the burpees? Yeah, that makes sense. From like a physiological standpoint. That makes sense. Okay. So yes, it's heavy for me. Maybe I'm not going to cook my CNS as bad, and maybe I can hammer out these burpees a little bit. Okay, you know what? Maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. Yeah. And that's when we look at logic, like the truth, the facts. Like, what are you basing this off of? So what are the facts? When you look at the facts, it's going to trump emotions every single time. So when we look at mental health, if you look at the actual facts, so what am I basing this off of? Okay. Not to diversify too much, but another example, just to get to the facts part of this. I think this is very important. We've all been in a relationship and we've all been emotional. And we've all said some things when we're upset.
100%.
Common. Okay. I told you, just ask my ex-girlfriend, man. She'll tell you. Okay. So there's times where maybe we're typing on our phone, or we're texting, we're arguing, everything's all caps, and like out come the exclamation marks, and you're just blah, blah, blah. And you probably know that you shouldn't say something like this. And your thumb is just like, and sends it anyways. Right.
Yeah.
When we're emotional, the logic goes out the window. Okay. Here's a perfect example. Somebody called and they were like, man, every single time I call you, you never answer the phone. But they just called me. I picked up the phone. But, every single time you never answered the phone. Like, I just answered the phone.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most emotional based statement I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
So something that I like to use is I ask, okay, based on what? What are you basing this on? What's the tangible facts that you're basing this on? Okay. Based on what? Well, when you base it on logic, like I just answered the phone, obviously that discounts drastically, never and every time. Mm-hmm. So when we look at what am I basing this off of? What are the facts? Find the truth. The truth will trump the emotions every single time. Look at the logic. The problem is when we're emotional, it's very difficult to find the logic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's thousands of examples I'm sure we can all choose from. I could probably sit here for a day reflecting on that and come up with 1,000 examples.
Yeah.
How important I know the answer is going to be important, but like during your share there where you were saying, you're going through this stuff where you're contemplating life at that point, and then you talked about what started to change. It wasn't just your mindset. It was your nutrition.
That's right.
It was what you were exposing yourself to in terms of content or news, we'll call it. What other changes do you think were a part of that equation? Did you start exercising differently? Did you start hanging around with different people?
Yeah. So to give you an idea, before I would turn off all the lights and lie in my bed all day in the dark.
Right.
Okay. When there's nothing around, there's just this, right? And when you're in a bad state, this can do some bad things. Well,
100%.
Yourself, right?
Yeah.
So he can smile, so can I, the boy in the wheelchair. I kept applying that to things. So what's going to make Brett smile is what I would ask. What is it that's going to make me happy? And that's what I started doing. So whether it was reading a book, whether it was learning something, getting a sense of accomplishment, watching, dude, what's messed up is I'm kind of twisted in a way because I couldn't eat very well, right? So I intentionally was in a good enough state that I started watching the cooking channel as motivation, man, for me to figure out, I want to get better because I love to cook. Man, I'm Italian. Okay. I like to eat. So I'm like, I want to watch the cooking channel. And dude, I started falling in love with cooking and recipes. The next thing I know, I said, screw it, man. One day I'm going to make some stuff. So like super healthy stuff. And dude, I started doing cooking stuff. All right. I started learning more about the mind. I started having a better understanding. I started some breathing techniques. I took some online classes, like
Yeah.
stuff that made me happy. Man, I feel like people don't do, and maybe that's, I shouldn't say it like that, but I was not doing things that weren't making me happy. And I started to do it in life, and it drastically changed how I felt. And I said this in my story. One day, a few months later, I was in the kitchen and I was making like a juice, and my mom came downstairs and she looks at me and she was like you're like glowing, like glow. I would joke. I was like, "Oh, Graham, I'm pregnant, right?" Like, she's like, "You just have like this aura." Like, I was just I went from being miserable, horrible, that was tough to be around, to wanting to engage in conversation, wanting to talk. And that's why I said that's that snowball that, like it can be this way or it can go this way. Starts with a choice. My whole motto of my TED Talk was, "You're one conscious decision away from an entirely different life."
Right.
And I said this at the one last talk, man. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right in that wedge, or that fulcrum point where it's like, it
right.
can go either way. Yeah. Fuck, man, that's dope. Did you ever have any, did you ever hire or work with a therapist during any of that stuff, or was it mainly you on your own?
Yeah, no, I had a ton of support when I was in a better state. At the beginning, told those guys to fuck off. Like, every doctor I talked to it was just all negative. Maybe about 6 months after, so one of the doctors that I got really close with, who was, man, he's a tremendous amount of help for me. He shined so much light on certain situations. He was the kind of guy that would identify things with facts. Hey, Brett, here's your previous blood work. Here's your blood work now.
Yeah.
Here's the measurable. This is the tangible stuff, right? So when I would see him, like, I'd be excited to see him. Like, I'd want to see him, right? And he was supportive, and he challenged my thought process, and he hit me with the facts. So a lot of the stuff that I talk about today is from my own personal experience and things that I've learned from certain doctors and so on. So anyways, that doctor, like I said, he helped me tremendously, challenged my thought process, and kind of, I don't want to use the term motivation, but he gave me more purpose to keep going.
Yeah. Purpose is huge, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. It's like every time I saw him, he would reinstill the belief that what I was doing was working.
Yeah, that's key. So how key do you think so if you look back and you were like, if I didn't have, some of these, it's, you had a doctor.
Yeah.
How important do you think external support was in your progress of, I'm watching this cooking show to where you got to?
Yeah, I think it's a ton. Now, there's a couple of things, like my martial arts master was incredible. He helped me learn some meditation techniques. Like, I was practicing meditation. I had like an instructor there. So there was a lot of great support. But the funny thing is that support was always there. But when I was in a shit state, it didn't matter how much support I had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in a bad state where I didn't give a shit. Like, I didn't want to put myself into a state to learn. And that's why somebody once asked me, they said, Brett, you bring everything back to that moment of the boy in the wheelchair. And I said, yes, that was the moment that I gave myself the decision. That's the moment that I made my choice. Right. But who knows what would have happened if if the support wasn't there in the past and I was in even a worse state when I saw the boy in the wheelchair. Maybe it doesn't do anything to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, maybe I would have seen that over and over and over again, and it would never have fazed me. So I will never know, but all I'll tell you is that this external support is so crucial, but it always comes back to ourselves, man.
One thing I find really fascinating about going down the rabbit hole of finding people, we all like inspirational stories, right?
Mm-hmm,
stories bring us together. A story like yours, or a story like a guy I've been following for a while is David Goggins. We've all heard him, right? Yep. It's hard not, like, he's so intense. The story's crazy. But one thing that you said, is you got goosebumps as you're talking about it.
Yep.
I think that might be the difference between, this is just a thought I'm coming up with now. I think that might be a difference between motivation and inspiration. I think maybe we can be motivated by other people, but I think maybe we need to be inspired from ourselves. And I think, what do you think of that? I'm
Oh,
making
very
it
well
up.
said, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
very well said. I mean, there's a big difference between it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's actually funny. I never really thought about it like that. And yeah, I think you're very well said, man. Spot on.
And I've been caught like constantly seeking other people for motivation, whether it's like, you're listening to a speech while you're working out, and that stuff feels good.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say, even in my own life, is times where I got those goosebumps when it was just me in a room with nothing else. And it was after I got told that I achieved a huge goal I was working on.
Mm.
And I had this like minute of reflection. It was the goal was, I was working at Good Life Fitness, which you've heard of. We're in
Yep.
Canada. And my goal that year was to be top trainer of the company. And so I had a lot of support for that. I had one person in particular that I think helped me inspire myself. So here's where the inspiration comes in. He was like a general manager or a regional manager, and he believed that I could do it. So it was partly having someone that believed that I could do it, right? So
Yeah.
having that support. And then I would write down these goals every morning, every night, which I talked about. That was during one of those times. And I planted these seeds throughout my house. I had my own house at that time, so I could decorate it as terribly as I wanted. And it was decorated in my goals.
Nice.
So underneath like shoe boxes, I'd write down these goals. This year you're getting that done. So I would just see it all over the place, right? As I would do like fasted cardio, I'd run on a treadmill, and I would just stare at a wall and just think about all my goals that I want to achieve. And if I got deterred, I would just try to bring it back. And it's basically like goal meditation, right?
Yeah.
I got a call from my boss at that time. So this is, after the results came in, I got a call. And I remember just coming off the phone. I can think of this now, and I don't think about this memory often, but there was no one home. I was in my kitchen, and I just started to I felt so pumped up, like I more pumped up, like adrenaline pumped up, like I could, pull a truck like we used to do in strongman.
Yeah.
With no warm up, that kind of stuff. And I think back to that, and I'm like, that's the shit I think people need to get to. I think people need to achieve something on their own so that they can use that for see what you can do, not me. Like you and I are coaches. We're helping facilitate it in different ways, but it's the person.
Totally, man. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like doing something, whatever it is, doing something, achieving it is going to help start that process. It's going to fuel you. It gives you positive reinforcement. There's so many things here. That's why I said to you that, maybe the guy says, "Oh, I talked to a bunch of people today. I can put my feet up and watch Netflix for the night."
Mm-hmm.
The realtor. Okay, maybe he's created that self set of accomplishments that believed he's done it. But deep down inside, if you go to the gym and put in work and just dick around for 2 hours, there's a big difference, right? You feel different.
Yeah.
So making it measurable and something that's tangible where you can knock off these check marks. Hey, I hit my goal today. I achieved this. There's so much more to it than just hitting that in terms of how you feel, sense of accomplishment. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I am doing this, right? And then it just compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I found really interesting about when you were sharing your story during the one last talk, I noticed this is when I realized it, because you were in the Olympics, so you're considered a high level athlete at that point, and it was really like not affirming for myself, but I think just I felt like it was important to hear for other people, or for me to share that part of that story with clients, and that athletes are fucking people. Like, you know what I mean? Just because you're really good at something doesn't mean you don't have these, issues. Like you had a lot of like, body issues, right? I just felt like that is also a big disconnect. I think, I'm curious to see what you think, between general pop and athletes is we think they're just completely, different breeds of people. And from what you're saying, you're working with people that have all the same struggles. I know Emily Rolfe, her last name's Rolfe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't she a full-time nurse?
She is, man.
Like,
oh yeah, buddy.
Dude, I know full-time nurses and they're great at what they do, but they do fucking nothing except for work.
Yep.
Where she's also doing this, and she's clearly found that pivot point where she's like, yeah, I'm gonna crush both.
That's because she loves to do that. And that's what she wants to do. Like she's achieving what she's choosing to achieve. Right.
Yeah.
And buddy, we're all the same.
Yeah.
Whether it's a CEO in business, whether it's the best athlete in the world, man, whether it's these huge influential people, man, we're all the same. Like, dude, we don't have some special powers, man, like at all. And I shouldn't even say we, like, I mean, yes, dude, I was a great athlete. I didn't make it to the Olympics. Like I was good, but it was probably a tight stretch, but I wanted to do everything I could to get there. I don't care who it is, whether it's me, whether it's Matt Fraser, whether it's David Goggins. At some point along the road, these guys made a choice and said, fuck it, and went for it. That to me is the differential piece. And again, doesn't mean I'm right, but I believe somewhere along the lines, people make a decision, whatever it is that gets them to that decision, whether it's a boy in a wheelchair or whether it's, I don't want to deal with this relationship anymore, or I don't want to work for somebody else. I don't want to deal with my job, or I want to change my life. Somebody at some point is going to make a decision that'll drastically change their life. How far they take it is up to them.
Yeah. And I know that back to that nurse example, Emily's doing that stuff. That's sick. I don't know much about her, but I know there's so many people that work hard. It could be that realtor that just puts up his feet at night and watches Netflix for 3 hours. And it's like, man, we're doing terrible as a society though. Like I like to be positive, but I think I'm a little bit more realistic than I am just positive. And part of my goal with training is to tell people and believe it, to show people that they're better than they think they are. And you are too. That's essentially part of what a coach does. But I think fundamentally, there's just so much, we have a lot of issues that we need to start addressing. And I think, what do you think?
I get it. I get what you're saying. Like to me, seeing untapped potential bothers me. But at the same time, I have to be mindful and respect again what people want.
100%.
And what it is that they are striving to achieve. Man, not everybody's going to be Goggins. I mean, like he's next level crazy. Like it's unbelievable.
Totally. It's obsessive for sure.
Yeah. So even like when I hear people like Tony Robbins, some of these incredible influencers, like incredible people that have achieved so much, they're basically saying like, hey, you can do it if you want to. Right. Yeah. But a lot of people, maybe they don't want that. And that's fucking totally okay. I had a tough conversation a while ago. This is some challenging feedback. I had an incredible mentor that I was working with for a long time, and I saw talent in somebody. And this was like me trying to ram a fucking square peg in a round hole because I was pushing it on them because I could see it and it bothered me. And it got to the point where I had to be told like, hey, dude, what part of that's not what that person wants do you not get? And I was like, shit. Yeah, I fucked up. Like, I guess to me, all I saw was the crazy untapped potential. This is what they could achieve if they would just do this. But that's not what they wanted. But like, why is it my job? It's not. That's when I realized my job is to shine light on potential. And if that's what you want to achieve, we'll get you there.
Yeah.
If you want to achieve greatness in a different realm, dude, we'll get you there instead. Again, the application is the same. It's just where we're going to put it is a little bit different. Yeah. Whether it's you want to become a CEO of the business or you want to train for the Olympics. Okay. Because I want you to train for the Olympics, but you want to be a CEO. Who the fuck am I to make the decision for you?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I've struggled with that before too. It's but it really is so unhelpful. And it's really energy costs. Like it costs a lot of energy for you as a coach, right? Where you're just like thinking about what the potential is for this person. And yeah, they don't give a shit about it. Yeah. I've gone down that road where I felt like I had more of an idea of what this person's what that client's goals were than they did. And I was like,
Sure.
this doesn't make too much sense because they don't really want that shit.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to your very beginning phase about, what people are paying for trainers, and I think that's very, very important. Like, here is a neutral, unbiased opinion that's going to show you with facts what you're saying to me and what you want to achieve, being able to differentiate those things from a factual basis based on what? In a non-emotional bias. A lot of times people are emotional.
Mm-hmm.
There's reality. As coach, we can sit back and look at things from the outside perspective and hit it with the facts. And I think that's very important.
Just be a mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely tons of different things, but for sure, that's one of them. Really quick, a good buddy of mine that I train with, man, as a people who train in the gym, like, this guy's got the most incredible hips. It's unbelievable. His bottom position in his squat and his clean, it's incredible, man. Watching him snatch it, and I'm just like, wow, like, buddy, you understand? Like, if we put some time in here, like, you could do some incredible things.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I know, but I don't like, I like to train for fun, man. Like, I don't want to do that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, man, come on, dude. And my coach is like, dude, I said the same thing to a long time ago, but man, this guy, he's one of the happiest guys I know, man. And he just loves to train recreation. And you know what, man? Like, fuck, good for him. I'm fucking jealous about his hips. Bro, yes, man,
Dude, I might take a snippet out of this and just be like, dude, I'm jealous about his hips. I might just, I'll just send that to you.
Yeah, man. But yeah, again, like I said, it's very important for us to, to identify what it is that people really want to achieve in a non-judgmental, non-biased manner. It's up to them, but shine some light on different areas. For sure we can.
Totally, man. Yeah, I do think that's important. And that's something I do struggle with. Why did you want to go to the Olympics? I want to peel it back. Like, was that your real desire, or were you doing that for someone else? Or
no, it was definitely for me. It was more so the fact that it was unrealistic. Okay. It was more so the fact that, yes, I was good, but the chances of having everything line up and to get there, nothing's impossible. It was going to be tough. So I like the challenge, man. And I've always liked the challenge. I even shared some personal stories with you. Like, for me, it was, this is going to be a tremendous amount of work, pain, and suffering. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. I was prepared to quit my job, which I did, and move overseas. Like, those are experiences that I always hear people thinking about doing and never do. Right. I was never like this all the time, but I was told that chances are it can't happen. And that's what triggered me. And I told you about this. So, man, I had somebody tell me once, like, what makes you think you can train pro athletes? And I was like, oh man, let's go.
Yeah.
I worked in the corporate world after I got better. I had an incredible corporate job that I busted my ass to get. Worked there for 5 years, get this job. I finally get the job, and I'm like, nah, that's not, I don't want this job anymore. And they're like, okay, well, everybody your age should probably get married and have kids. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So I quit the job. I sold my house and I traveled the world for 2 years straight because I wanted to. So I have a tendency of doing extreme things, not because I love the rush. Sure, the rush is great, but more so I like the challenge. Okay. For me, it's like, if that constant pursuit of better it's that close, take it, like, go for it. Sure, it'd be nice.
So you said that goal was, you set that goal because you saw it as like, this is going to be really challenging.
Yes.
And you were already in that line. Like, you did that discipline. You've been doing it for quite a while, but
yeah, my big thing was, and this, my parents, man, I got, oh gosh, like I said, the external variables are so important, the external factors. Then my mom, the loving, compassionate, I'm still her baby boy, man. I'm 39 years old, right? That's I have her mom, baby boy. Okay. My dad is the old school Italian guy who's like 5'6" with tough as nails. Like, you don't mess with this guy. He's in Dino. Like, you don't mess with this guy. Okay. So he's like the hardcore, relentless guy. Man, I tell the story of when I was a little kid. I was like 13 years old. Of course, he was my coach. My dad was my soccer coach, obviously, right? So I played defense, and we were up 2-0, and I never scored a goal, man. I'm 13. I go end to end with the ball, and I score. And dude, like, in my mind, this is like it's on TSN for sure. Okay. Like, man,
I saw you on there.
Yeah, obviously. Right. And dude, I'm jumping for joy. And man, I look over at my hero, my dad, and oh, buddy, He looks at me. The next thing he says is referee sub, and he pulls me out and he benches me. Like, that's my old man. Okay. I scored my very first goal. I'm 13 years old. I played soccer since I was 4. And I know I'm in shit. And I don't understand why. Doesn't say a word to me. Okay. And we're getting in the car. We get on the way home. And he says, I have one question for you. And I was like, okay, what's up?
Yeah.
He's like, if you're trying to play somebody else's position, who's going to play yours? And I was a defender trying to play a forward and score, right? So that's the kind of mentality that I grew up with. If you're going to do something, do it 100% or don't bother doing it all. So I get that from my dad. And then I get my loving, compassionate, emotional from my mom, right? Great balance. But my biggest thing that he would always challenge me on, and my mom would, is she'd give me the love and compassion, so I was in a good state. My dad would always say, listen, you can achieve whatever you want. Okay. It's just a matter of how bad you want it. All right. And if you want it, then fucking go. Because the last thing you ever want to do is look back and say, like, what if? And that fear of regret drives me every single day. It's part of the reason why I push my athletes so hard. And I'll say to certain, like I told Emily a little while ago, I said, hey, you need to fire me as a coach and we need to find you a better mental coach. And she's like, what the heck is wrong with you? And I said, listen, because you got a few years, you need to do everything you can in your power to achieve what you want to achieve. Because if you don't, that regret will haunt you, just like it does to me.
Especially in CrossFit, because age does make a huge difference to that sport. Yeah,
exactly, man. And I'm telling you that thought of regret is what makes me strive for greatness, sell my place to travel the world because I can, and because I wanted to, it's something I want to do. It's part of who I am, man.
I think people need to hear that. I don't think people, I don't get sick of hearing that kind of story where it's like, if you want to do something, just fucking go do it.
But man, if we don't, so what happens? So, okay, so we don't do it. So we just go back to the regular, right? Maybe the regular is okay for some people. It ain't for me. All right. I'm not okay with mediocrity. I'm not okay with half-assing shit. If I'm going to do it, let's go.
Yeah. Okay. This is, I can relate to your perspective and your like sort of situation with goals. Are you at a stand-up desk, by the way? Are you sitting down?
No, I'm at a stand-up desk.
Nice, man. I thought of that, but I just got a stand-up desk and I think I broke it. So I'm sitting now. I just got it a week ago. I don't know. I have a TV sitting on it, so it's probably the weight. Anyway, I can relate to you more. So when you say, if you say, dude, I don't know if you can do that. It's like, okay, let's fucking let it rip, right?
Let's go.
Whereas I'm wondering, and maybe this is a question because I can't relate as much, but I don't want to say for regular people. I'm going to say for people that don't necessarily relate to like, I'm going to set a huge fucking goal and crush it. I want that pressure. How do you know if you're someone that's truly just happy being, regular? And I don't mean that in like a condescending way, but how do you know if you're a regular person, how do you know if you're okay actually being regular, or if you just haven't taken that opportunity to be like, holy shit, no, I can do that?
That's a great question, man. I think the raw, authentic truth will come from deep inside yourself, but I don't believe people go there. All right. Let me just spin this. I have a question. Do you believe that people know exactly who they are?
I know I don't know exactly who I am, so I'm going to say no, I don't think so.
Yeah. So then it's so crazy because we know who we are. It's us. You know what I mean? But do we really? So these layers, right? So there's some techniques you can do. Okay. And I think it's important to peel back some of these layers to find the authentic version of you. But the most important piece that I would say to every single person listening is stop for a few days or a week or a month and start taking conscious notes of every single thought you have in your head. Now, people will probably be surprised as to what the fuck they actually think. I mean, we make 35,000 subconscious decisions every day. I don't want you to write down 35,000 things. I want you to write down the things that stand out to you, the things that you're thinking, the thoughts that you have that you don't really tell anybody. When you start taking note of your own conscious thoughts.
I'm writing this down, dude. This is sick.
When you start taking notes of your own conscious thoughts, after a little while, you're probably going to start to see a pattern. You're probably going to start to see some things that stand out to you. And I would circle those things and maybe dig a little bit deeper. That whole self-awareness piece is crucial, man. To me, this is one of the best exercises that I've ever done. I still do it, here and there. And this is something that I practiced for years, 10 years. Man, to me, authenticity is everything. Finding out what's really going on in your head will start to shine some serious light on authenticity and maybe your overall state. I've had clients I've done this with, and they said, these are pro athletes, and they said, dude, I'm fucking depressed when they look at these notes. And they're like, hey, let's identify, let's look at this together. Or, dude, I fucking love my life. Like, wow, I never really thought about these things before. I'm like, why the fuck you're thinking about these things? These are your thoughts, man. What do you mean? So that shit happens. And it's crazy because the thoughts that zoom through our head, sometimes they go, man. It's like the YouTube rabbit hole. It's just all of a sudden you end up here, right?
Yeah, cat videos, fuck's sakes.
Oh yeah, man. Dude. And then all of a sudden, if you stop and identify them and dig a little bit and say, what I want this thought, it intrigues me. Like, man, how does that make me feel? Or, where's the advantage or where's the adversity in this? Or wow, all of a sudden you can kind of really start to figure out more about what's going on in here, start to get a clearer picture of who Brett and what Brett's all about.
Man, I think that's great. I love how that's like such a simple, tangible thing to do. I'm straight up going to take that from you. I'm going to do that.
Do it. Don't just do it for a day. Don't just do it for a few days. Do it. Do it every single day. And here's the other thing I'm going to say is keep a notepad with you or use your phone notes app. Don't sit down at the end of the day and try to write down your thoughts that you thought. That's never
it's impossible. Yeah.
Write them down throughout the day. Just conscious thoughts. Boom, write them down, write them down, write them down. Keep going. Put it on as that's day one, next. Day two, boom. And then as this starts to progress, you're probably going to start to see a few things.
Some trends.
Like one day in the gym ain't going to do shit, man.
Yeah.
Put some time into it. You want to really peel back those own self layers of authenticity, man. This is a great tool to do it.
Yeah, this is dope. I'm super in.
Yeah,
man, I love this conversation, Brett.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. I really appreciate that. Like the first thing that came to my mind is I got to do something with my backdrop here. Like I got this old rose curtain. I'm working. You saw it says, "Hey, Brett" on the whiteboard.
I see that. I like that. I appreciate
it. Man. It's key.
Dude,
it's professional.
Listen, man. Again, backdrop, whatever, man. My company's Van City Brett. What the fuck does that have to do with performance coaching? Who gives a shit, man? This is over time, man. Every time I did something, I achieved something great with an athlete, I put their picture on their wall. Like they're going to, sign, boom, they're on the wall, right? This is something for me, but that, in time, buddy. I've been doing this for years, right?
Yeah, I just like that idea of capturing more moments and actually putting them up because I just moved into this space and I gotta have some more visuals in it. It helps. Yeah. So
remember, the most important visual is the one in your mind, brother.
Cool, man.
Focus on that one, and then the rest, that's easy.
Okay, man. I'm doing the notes.
Do it, bro.
Do it. Thanks for your time today, bro.